Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the News Behind the News with Ralph Kintav on Mix 94.7 FM, and thank you for joining us on today's program. This afternoon, I have here with me Miss Maya Friday, who is the president of the Dutch St. Martin Taxi Association. Interestingly as well, one who made history as the first woman to hold that position. I think that is something worth noting. And without further ado, Miss Friday, thank you so much for being on the program. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for inviting me to your program.
Okay, great.
A platform to speak.
Yes, that's the goal of this show, is to provide that platform for various persons, various issues. Highlight different stuff that are happening here in St. Martin. Do know that definitely, the taxis of St. Martin are part of, when you hear, for example, the backbone of our economy. You think of small businesses. Taxis are one of them. But sometimes they, in my observation, probably don't get enough recognition or highlight of what they're going through. So I appreciate you being here. But before we get into all of that, I'll just have you share with us a bit about yourself, and in particular as well, what is something you appreciate about growing up in St. Martin?
Okay. Well, I've been a taxi driver since 2013. Originally, I started in downtown in front of the courthouse. We formed an association down there to get certain issues across the government at the time. And then I became a member of the Dutch St. Martin Taxi Association in 2016. Of course, Irma happened during that period. In September, we were out of work for a while. Then in that association, I became the assistant treasurer to the then treasurer, Mr. A.T.N. Richardson. From there, the next election, I postulated for secretary, and I was nominated secretary of the association. And finally now, in 2021, I postulated myself for president of the association, and I'm now the president of the Dutch St. Martin Taxi Association. Not just the first female, but also the youngest president in the history of the association.
Nice. So that definitely shows some progress as far as the group is concerned.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, what was the motivation or inspiration for you in becoming a taxi driver?
The independence that it comes along with. I'm more of an independent person. The regular 9-to-5 really isn't my thing. I prefer to work for myself. That's one part of it. The next part is the tourism industry also, like having that ability to meet different people from different places, try to figure out people's cultural differences and stuff like that. All of that was a part of why I became a taxi driver.
Okay, understood. And I guess that it's also fulfilling, at the end of the day, or even in the process. It gives you that joy, that drive to drive, no pun intended, to keep going.
Yeah.
Okay. So, as you rightly shared, since Irma, basically, Hurricanes Irma and Maria, we have had a tough season. I'm sure that it's been a tough season for many drivers as well, especially now having to being phased out of the pandemic. And can you detail, basically, how was it like? I know, for example, the SSRP was something that was made available to many persons. As an association, lobbying for members to be able to get that support. How successful, or how was it in general?
In general, of course, it started off a bit rough because it's something that's like a new concept in St. Martin. So you had two aspects to it, where the Dutch St. Martin Taxi Association has an agreement with SZV. So some of our members were on who are on SZV were entitled to get it via SZV, because there was two different parts to the SSRP. Mm-hmm. You have the business section,
yes,
and then you have the individual section,
yes,
for vendors, taxi drivers, and so forth. So it started off a bit rough, where certain drivers would get their money before others. I would say the program itself, I wouldn't say it was a complete success, in the sense of there are people that applied and they were denied without proper reasoning for why it is they were denied. And I'm not just referring to taxi drivers. I'm referring to vendors, for example. I know some vendors that work on back street that were denied the SSRP without a proper given reason, and they really and truly had no income, you know. And like how everything works here in St. Martin, unfortunately, there's some people that receive that should not have received the SSRP. So it was good in the sense of at least there was an income for us to be able to have, you know, during that period, because there was like nothing at all. So even though the airport is there was barely any work coming in at the airport as well. So it had its moments, touch and go.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And as far as the challenges, then, you know, again from 2017 to now, can you detail, you know, what has it been like, you know, as far as yourself and members that had to go through?
From 2017, like our first experience with the very first ship that came back in December 2017, 2 taxis moved.
Wow.
And there were about 1,000 passengers on board that ship. And we saw like the bigger buses, which are basically the cruise ships. They do business with the cruise ships, basically. Those buses went full. So there's that start off, right? But then eventually it got better, you know. It got to a point where, of course, the numbers and figures weren't like pre-Irma. Yeah. It definitely wasn't like that, but yeah, we still should be grateful for whatever it is we're given, you know? Yeah.
Okay. And even so, for example, you mentioned like the buses, like they have their agreement with the cruise ship. Has the association ever tried creating one with the cruise ship as well, or can you even? Are you allowed to do so?
Okay, so we just recently got back from the FCCA conference in Puerto Rico. The FCCA conference is basically where like people in the industry in the Caribbean come together to discuss. So based on what I've seen from that conference, it's more garnered towards government and like port management, right? The second day wasn't so bad. The second day was for like tour operators basically, and based on what they're saying, mass production definitely is something that the bigger ships are into, and then the smaller ships, of course, because they cater to a different dynamic of people, like maybe couples or families or so forth, they would more seem like the type of companies we would be able to more so work with. We had the opportunity to meet with some persons from Seadream, Mr. Emilio Freeman, who seemed pretty positive about what it is we could do with him, you know. The opportunity is there for you to work with the ships. I think what the biggest issue is the commissions that the ships look for. It would be too much for a small business.
So can you break that down?
So, like, of course, there's a percentage that the cruise ship has to have from whoever books an excursion with you, right? So, let's say, for example, our fee for a tour or something is $100. 60 would stay for the driver or the association, and then the other 40 would have to stay, maximum 40% would have to stay with the cruise ship.
Wow.
So it is a challenge.
Yeah, considering your other costs, like gas, and
business,
then you're kind of left with. Understand. So, as an association, can you, I guess, describe how do you guys work together? So, how do you assist members, you know, as a group?
Okay.
If you can, basically operations.
As a group, basically, we're like the forefront for dealings with government, also dealings with port management. And like we have a dispatch system. In that dispatch system, everybody goes by turn. For example, with the SSRP, there are people that weren't able to fill out their forms, so the association would assist in that way. Also, you have sometimes a member may be sick or so forth, so we would try to help them out with like SZV coverage or giving them a break as a member in order to be able to have that coverage and still be okay. You know, there's many different things, and as the situation arises, then we know how to deal with it as a board. Yeah.
So you mentioned as just a few times, the agreement that you have with them is based only with your association, or can independent is there provision for independent taxi driver to receive coverage or assistance from SFA if need be?
Usually what would happen is they would come they would be under the association, which could be a risk because with your members you have more control over like payments because the individual driver is responsible for those payments to the association, which then goes over to SZV. So like it all depends. If a person is paying on time the way they're supposed to, then yes, it could be a part of it. But then if we see we have an issue with them coming in to pay, which negatively reflects on the entire association, then that's a different story, and we wouldn't have that person be on SFV because we don't want to take that risk.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I'm curious about is how things have picked up, particularly since, so before COVID and right after Irma. Like you detailed, for example, with the first cruise ship, it really wasn't that well. Mm-hmm. But how would you describe the industry on a whole, tourism-wise, the economy, as a taxi driver, as St. Martin was rebuilding? How would you describe that?
We would have to definitely factor in the challenges that we face. Like post-COVID, for example, the ships had their own restrictions with people being able to board because people think like cruise ships are like a petri dish basically for spreading disease. So there's that challenge where the ship, and why I focus on the ship so much is because our association obviously works at the cruise port. We don't work at the airport. Mm-hmm. So the ships weren't coming to capacity, a lot of them were coming at most about 40% capacity. Because like I know people look out, they see, oh, look at all those ships, but they don't realize everything makes a difference. What makes a difference is the type of people that come. So we as taxi drivers, right, would more so benefit from families or younger persons. Older people tend to stay on the ship more or prefer to go with a ship excursion. Because with the cruise ships too, there's another challenge with them on top of that, where some of the ships tell people, oh, there's no taxis available at the port in St. Martin. Or they would also say certain things like, okay, if you're late and you book an excursion with the ship, you're guaranteed to get back on the ship. But if you go independently, the ship would leave you, There's things like that. There's those challenges that we have to deal with. So it kind of affects the amount of foot traffic that we have coming to us because, of course, you travel on a vacation, I travel on a vacation. I've never been on a cruise ship, but for me, if I'm on a ship, I won't necessarily want to be packed in with a bunch of other people. So there is that market for us, but it kind of gets minimalized based on what it is the ships say. So so
you guys are basically battling those misconceptions.
Yeah, we have to battle those misconceptions on a continued basis, Like we try to spread information via social media. Everybody's on social media, so like, okay, you want a safe taxi? Yes, we're located here at the port. Mm-hmm. We have regulations that we have to follow, things like that, so that we could basically fight that as a smaller organization that does not necessarily have the funds to be able to partake in like advertisement on the ship.
Yeah.
Like the bigger companies here, they definitely can't afford to do it. So of course they would be promoted, but with us it's a different story. Another challenge that we also face with the changes that have happened is the cruise port. Unfortunately, there are signs that exist stating that they're taxis, but they're like covered. You can't see them.
Really?
Yeah. There's some signs they're covered by trees, or signs just basically don't exist.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's an issue that we currently have where there's two signs that exist in a specific location, wherein one sign is sufficient enough. The other, there's a lack of signs in another key location, and that key location just so happens to be where the buses are, the cruise buses. So, like, people would come off of the ship, they don't see us. the taxi stand. We're being blocked by a building, basically, right? And it's on a regular basis that we have cruise passengers when they come to us. The last comment I heard from a guest was, it took me forever to walk this entire port to find you guys. Where are the signs? Right? And sometimes we have people that book with us online in advance, and they're like, we couldn't find you, you know? But where the buses are, like I was referring to just now, the cruise ships are not allowed to sell excursions on shore. They are supposed to do it all on the ship. But we see for ourselves, right, persons that go over to them, because everything is not clear. You know, you're in a different country. You're not, if it's your first time here, you're not sure how things operate. You have misinformation coming from off of the ship. They walk over there, they see people going in that direction, so everybody figures, okay, this is the direction that we should go in. And you would hear people looking for a taxi or looking for a tour, and instead of those persons directing them over to the taxi stand, what they do instead is they take money from them right there in front of us before they get on a bus, you know. And then, like, you would complain about something, you know, and nothing's really being done about it.
So, yeah, that was really my next question. Like, when last have you had a conversation with port management and stuff to you know, highlight these concerns?
Okay, so
what is the feedback that you've gotten as well from
with
the port?
Port security, at least, what they do is they would apprehend the person. I know of one situation where the port security, because there was a gentleman that works on one of the buses that was sending people out to his father, who is not in any way, shape, or form a transportation provider, does not have the legal right to transport people. He was sending them out to them, and they dealt with that. But it's not everything that they deal with. And you don't want to be in a position either to always have to complain about something that you're seeing all the time.
Yeah, I get you, but your right must be protected. There's an agreement, there's a protocol. All parties involved. You guys have been doing your due diligence. You're parked in the area you're supposed to.
Exactly.
You know, you're waiting clientele. So your partner, in the sense of the port and security management, etc. They have, you know, they're supposed to also live up to that agreement.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, we so-called say that tourism is for everybody. You know, and again, going back on this whole rhetoric maybe of the small business, so-called small man being the backbone of our economy and so forth.
Yes.
yeah, I don't even like that term. Anyhow, you know, so if you're being encouraged to get involved, to be independent and whatnot, and you're met with these barriers that should not be there, you know, by all means, you need to tear it down. And I'm not saying be aggressive, disrespectful, but meaning to say you have to challenge, you know, whoever put it there, and the barrier itself.
Because obviously, with us not having signs, there's something that we would have to do in order to be able to move every taxi. So, as president, my objective is that every member that comes to the port gets a job. That nobody leaves the port without a job for the day, especially now where we have a reduction of ships, right? So what we implemented, basically, we have these taxi drivers that basically we call welcomers. So their purpose is just to stand there. If people come and approach you, tell them this is the direction to the taxi stand for whatever it is you need, okay? They obviously, as taxi drivers as well, we can't be every and anywhere on the port. We have restrictions to where it is we could go. And again, coming to the signs, like we've pointed out that if we do have these signs, then there is no need for these drivers to be standing in key locations to bring people towards us, you know, and that kind of fell on deaf ears. We heard stories about let me not say stories. We heard statements about like the budget. They don't have the budget to be able to accommodate us at the moment. They would try, they would get back to
accommodate in the sense of putting up signs and stuff?
Yes.
Wow.
And which is fine, you know. But the problem is, like I indicated previously, there is a sign that already is up, and we requested, look, it would make so much of a difference if that big sign would be right there where everybody sees when they coming over in that in a particular direction. That if you put that up, there's no need for none of those drivers to be out there trying to direct people to the taxi stand, and up to now it hasn't been moved, and that has nothing to do with a budget because it already exists.
Yeah.
The other signs, the one thing would be the tree that is blocking it. You could chop the limbs a little bit, the branches or so forth a bit so that people could see the signs clearly. There's another one that I didn't even know existed because it's basically like faded in the background of the wall that it's on. A little paint,
Yeah.
Slap a little paint on it, make it a little bright, and then we'll know.
Yeah.
And when you have these smaller requests that to me don't seem like it's taking anybody way out of whatever it is they're responsible for, and especially since we don't have much ships coming in, and these days there's maintenance that's regularly there to take care of those things. The question becomes why?
Yeah.
Why is this not being done? Why do we have to send in written complaints from our guests that are complaining about not being able to find a taxi stand?
Yeah.
We
And the
send that
taxis
in,
are right there.
and the taxis
They're
are
literally
right there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
Why is this not being addressed?
Yeah, because and the factor in that too is, we can't hide the fact that Simon is a capitalist society.
It
sometimes with a little too laissez-faire version of capitalism, and somebody's definitely benefiting. And that is the bottom line. So again, going back to the backbone of our economy concept. Then what are we doing to provide support for that spine? Because what you miss, somebody will recoup.
Exactly.
And
who are the people that are recouping?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially being that government gave out permits, like you gave out, let's say, approximately 500 permits. If you give those permits out, there should be enough work for those 500 drivers to be able to make a decent living, at least. So why give this out and not regulate that whole situation?
That is, yeah.
And then we had Roger Lawrence, the former minister. Unfortunately,
well, still minister.
Still minister, but he's
former
basically
port employee.
Former port employee, which we were really ecstatic about because he is in the industry and he knows the challenges that come in the industry.
Yeah.
So for him to be over that was excellent. And then for now to hear that he is about to be out when he showed us so much respect, like any questions that we had, like he was open to everything. Whether he agreed or disagreed, we just showed each other mutual respect, and it's sad to see him go, basically, because he was like an ally,
I get what you're saying. I will add, though, there's a little misconception about the minister because he has not submitted any formal resignation.
Yeah.
And I will even just state it out here for the general public to be aware of. The matter of the minister resigning is actually a purposeful rumor that was created from within the coalition. And as a journalist, I don't speak without having facts.
Yeah.
So I will just leave it at that.
Okay.
Thanks
for that insight.
Yes, it's political.
Of course.
And yes, I made for example, that's a little sidetrack. I did a program on it because I do find it's an issue where it should be made plain that, listen, to be a minister, anyone could be a minister. Mm-hmm. Every minister is replaceable. Every single one of them. We have enough. We have enough professionals on St. Martin that could take out that post. So that is a serious concern of mine because there are definitely delays. For example, issues of the taxi association, people not getting their business licenses and stuff. So you need someone who's at the helm who can, get things done. Mm-hmm. But the issue arises, which is the fact of the political games, the meddling of outside forces. Yeah. Because how is it, seeing this is a second minister now who is of TIAT who's in some sort of limbo. Mm-hmm. So I do definitely wish him well, and if he can take the pressure when he recoups, come back stronger, fight harder, but do not allow the political bosses and class of St. Martin to break you.
Yeah.
You know, there are people who are theater is one of the most important. You got economy, telecommunications. Listen, that ministry needs a head. So I just want to add that because I know it's going wrong. I want to repeat it. The whole thing about the minister resigning was a rumor created from the coalition. You know, I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that. So but to go back to what you're saying, I do get what you know where you're coming from, because it also highlights the issue of how to say poor planning. You know, we know very well transportation licenses are something that's been given out particularly for political mileage.
Yes.
But it needs to be regulated and at the end of the day, the things that you're saying, while it may someone say, yeah, man, the taxis just keep complaining, but it's simple things.
Yeah, it's simple.
And at the end, you're talking about people being able to feed themselves, their families, to put their children through school, to maybe send some money abroad, to maybe they have a child in college, etc. Just basic stuff that all of us, you know, have responsibilities for.
Yes.
And you know, it's just, it shouldn't be accepted to not see any sort of effort there, because again, particularly the one main thing I've been hearing constantly since the lockdown is, well, after the lockdown, is the issue of the buses being filled and taxis being sidelined.
Yes.
And that is unacceptable.
And it has been happening for years. So I've been a taxi driver now almost 9 years, and the issues that I've seen in the 9 years have existed from even before I became a taxi driver. And like you highlighted, it's simple issues. Like the minister brought us in when he first came into office. They invited us in, asked us about what challenges we are facing. And I'm like, I've been a taxi driver basically at that point for 8 years. And ministers have come. Ministers have gone. Our issues have remained the same, and all we are asking the government to do is enforce the laws that already exist. We don't want anything else but for enforcement. Yeah.
I know that one of the slight issues that you guys had to deal with too, aside on social media some time back, was you see sometimes gypsies who would come by and pick up people. Is that something that's still happening, or has that been dealt with? Yeah,
that's definitely still happening. The good thing is right now, Maho Beach is basically the highlight of where tourists go. So what we do to protect the tourists and to protect our industry as well, meaning like the transportation sector,
yes,
is we have persons purchase like a wristband to go and to come to combat the whole situation, because it may seem like nothing and everybody says, hey, people have to eat, but when a tourist comes to you and they complain about a gypsy that maybe stole their phone, you know, how do you track that person down? Sometimes they're not aware that these people are not taxi drivers, and they don't know the danger of getting in an anonymous person's vehicle, you know. Whereas, like, as an association, the drivers have a responsibility to behave in a certain manner.
Even in terms of tax compliance, for example.
Tax compliance, that's a major issue as well. Because I've had a situation where a gypsy driver met me at the gas station. I took a receipt for my taxis, obviously. And he was like, what are you taking a receipt for? That's strange. I said, well, I got to pay my taxes, so I can take a receipt. He said, I don't know nothing about that. I don't pay taxes. So, where are we going?
Exactly.
So should we be exempted from paying taxes, you know? If these persons can come, not have a transportation license and transport people, what's the difference? What stops me as a taxi driver from saying, you know what? Take the permit back and I'm going to be a gypsy, because then I don't have any obligation to pay taxes to you as the government.
Exactly.
You know? So, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the News Behind the News with Ralph Kintav on Mix 94.7 FM. And thank you for sticking with us here on today's program. I'm joined with the president of the Dutch St. Martin Taxi Association, Ms. Maya Friday, who's providing us with highlights of, you know, what the taxis on St. Martin are going through. Some things that can be done, simple things really, you know, to be able to assist them much more. So basically, coming off our last conversation, you're really highlighting the fact that, there's a lot and little in a sense that could be done at the port to help you guys. But I'd like to get a bit more from you as far as what sort of feedback, different type of feedback that you've been hearing from guests, about the island in general, about, the experiences at whether it's a restaurant, a beach, etc. What sort of feedback have you been getting?
Okay, so St. Martin, based on what the tourists themselves say, I do drive as well, so I do have that connection to get direct feedback from them as well. Is positive. We do like evaluation sheets
Nice.
of each driver. We give it to one guest and we let them evaluate. And so far it's been positive.
Nice.
The only complaint I've heard so far about any particular driver was that the people couldn't hear him clearly at the back, and that had to do with a mic situation in that particular time, which is great, And as president, definitely, in St. Martin we have this tendency in our culture to kind of speculate.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, we speculate. Oh, this person can be doing the service the way it is. They're supposed to be doing because of this and that, or whatever. Oh, that person can't do a tour, and I'm like, hey, where are you getting this information from? So because of that, we give out the evaluation sheets.
Nice.
Especially to persons that we see might be a problem sometimes because of maybe behavior, the body language, or whatever. And we get the feedback from the tourists, and it's mostly positive, where our services are concerned. And then with the island in particular, you always hear them say that this is their favorite island so far, especially when they're here for the first time, and then they would say, I'll come back to St. Martin.
Nice.
I need to book a vacation here at least for a week. That's mostly it. Of course, sometimes too, you do get like negative feedback sometimes, which is expected in any aspect, especially with dealing with so many people, because every experience ain't created equally, because every human being is not created equally in an experience and in how they perceive things. So with businesses and so forth, most of the feedback is positive as well. Yeah, we haven't had any persons particularly complain about a particular business.
Okay.
So
well, that's good. That sort of feedback is necessary because we want to stay on the map. Maintain that brand that we've dubbed St. Martin, the Friendly Island.
Our biggest issues are traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the major concern, especially for cruise passengers, because they have a limited amount of time to be here. So nobody goes on vacation to spend time in traffic.
That's true.
You want to be in traffic at home. Not even at home, you want to be in it.
But definitely you want to be immersed in an experience.
Exactly.
Yeah, so maximize your time, especially because it's not stay over. Yeah. Where, okay, then tomorrow they could go ahead and...
Exactly. Yeah. So that's something I think like we need to definitely 100% work on. Yeah. Our traffic. Yeah.
Even as a side note, I remember... There was a student, who did not too long ago, maybe just about 4 years ago, who did a study on our traffic situation and how to improve our public transportation and stuff. And I think it was made public too, but I just said as a side note, that we have to sometimes, really make use of the minds we have on this island. Yeah. But besides that, then. One of the things I'm curious about too is like you mentioned, of course, Maho, where guests like to go to, of course, with the planes and so forth. What would you say are some other hotspots that people like to go to and be immersed with?
Okay, the zip line, the one in Coolsack is pretty popular as well. Lottery Farm on the French side, Orient Bay Beach is another spot. Of course, Phillipsburg is another hotspot that they would go to. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I remember a few months ago, if I'm not mistaken, change was made in the price of the taxi fare.
Yes.
Was this something suitable to you guys?
No.
Why not? Okay, yeah. Now I say that bad way, but I mean, why not? What's the issue there?
So the tariff basically would be approved by government. They had discussions with the previous previous board, taxi associations, in downtown and the airport were also involved, and also the taxi association on the front side, because
Also, in general, we have 4 taxi associations.
it's actually more than 4, but there's
okay.
some that are way smaller.
Okay.
They operate on a much smaller level. Like maybe they have just a trunking system, radio system, where they have a few members that are tapped into that, and then they work maybe with like the hotels or a particular hotel.
Okay, understood.
But yeah, the discussions back then, based on what I've heard from asking questions, is that they came to an agreement collectively, because the French side and Dutch side, when it comes to fares, bus fare and so forth, it should be like a collective. Even though we are 2 separate islands, we don't want our visitors to feel cheated.
Yeah.
So you don't want a situation where on the Dutch side you're charging a person $30 to go to a destination, while on the French side they're charging €40. Because people do talk and they complain about it, because there's like at the airport, for example, right? There's no board indicating what the prices are. They used to have it before. They don't have it anymore.
I see.
That's something at the port. What we have is the popular locations. We have the price highlighted so people could see what the prices are. And they need the same thing in downtown as well, which I believe they were asking for, to find a location that they would be able to put it in, and that was never done. Yeah.
Okay.
But with the new tariff, the bad thing about it is gas prices right now going up.
Yeah.
But the tariff, some of the prices went down. Yeah.
Okay.
So you have how it operates is by zones. There's zone 1, zone 2. So Phillipsburg, for example, is zone 1. And at first when I saw a change, I was like, I asked the people that were involved, were you guys involved in making this change? Because this is basically sabotage, right? They were like, no. When they saw the tariff as well, they were like, but this is not what we discussed. This is something completely different. So, for example, to go to Phillipsburg would be $6 for 2 persons, and sometimes like $3 a person. And sometimes people wouldn't want to pay the $3 either, right? They would prefer to pay less. But that price in particular went up to $10. And I'm like, who's going to pay $10 from Point Blanche to Phillipsburg?
Yeah.
That's like, it makes no sense. And then DV, which is a much further destination, the price dropped.
Yeah. I see. So, but, okay, go ahead.
And then they introduced this thing called ride sharing, which is basically similar to like a Uber
and
right?
Lyft. Yes, correct. Yeah, you see it in foreign
the prices
airports.
are like, wherein you were supposed to maybe collect $40 for a fare, collecting $25. Yeah, so based on how they have it set up, so it doesn't benefit us, in any way.
Are y'all considering a legal review to, have another sit down with government to?
Yes.
Because
and that's one of the challenges that we face with the minister, maybe like changing or not being there. That's definitely something, because we have spoken to each other, like our board sat down and discussed it as soon as we got it. We highlighted the problems that we saw with it. We had a discussion with the Airport Taxi Association, and they were like, yes, we see these same issues as well, so collectively we'll get together and discuss it with government.
Yeah, because that unity is paramount to really.
It is.
Because the minute you have any sort of division, in a sense, that will affect all of them, all the drivers,
all the taxi drivers.
Yeah, because hey, we're right now in 2022, and I'm pretty sure taxis as well will be approached in the upcoming election, as an association to support candidates.
Definitely.
But you guys, also a population, but since I'm speaking to you, you guys need to also demand, real work and effort.
Yeah.
We can't blame everything on COVID.
No.
Actually, you could say because of COVID, certain things should be done, because you're forced to work behind a computer, right? So
exactly.
Or what is Zoom meetings, whatever. So, because a hurricane is one thing, and maybe say, okay, the building match up, whatever. COVID, actually, you could even work from home and get it done. Yeah. That's why I think it's very crucial to lobby in that sense. You guys, as a population, but specifically the taxis associations, need to push for actual change.
I would still say that that's an unfortunate situation, to have to push that hard for something that is so simple.
Yeah.
But whatever must be done must be done.
Correct. Because
we can't sit down and just...
The decision makers don't feel the way you do.
No, they don't.
They
so
really
you have
don't.
to make yourself heard and known.
Yeah, because you guys don't get gas bonds.
No.
You got to work.
You don't get tax breaks.
Yeah, you got to work for that.
Sometimes, like, some of us receive some tax assessments and it's like, where am I going to get that?
Yeah.
That's about the amount of money that I make for half the year.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then following that too, having been president, I think almost a year, right? I think
almost a year,
August was when you sworn. Yeah. What other activities have you guys been engaged with?
So other activities, like, we've done a few donations here and there. Not very big donations, because, like I say, we're a small organization, but we like to give back, especially when it comes to children. There's something that I haven't discussed in depth with the board as yet, but something for basically the school year. So we'll see, where that is. But most of the focus really has been the association with the administration, because, like, people have rumors about this association in particular. Some are true, some are not true. It's unfortunate that the association is mostly painted in a negative light. And sometimes that negative light comes from our own members. Because, again, it's in order to be on the board, right, you have to be elected. And it's just like government. You have people that are for you, people that are against you.
Yeah.
And sometimes in our culture, again, if people are not for you, they try to sabotage you, not realizing when you sabotage,
you're screwing your own self.
You end up screwing yourself.
That's right.
Because, like, it is sad to me to see, like, being as a taxi driver, people see me in an orange shirt. Oh, you're part of that association? They always got problems. It's not nice to hear things like that, especially when behind the scenes the amount of time and effort that goes into trying to build the association and keep it at the level that it's on. So
okay. And how has that been then, reversing? Because I know at the end it can't be done. It can't be done in a year.
No.
But how has it been for you? Just still remaining on a positive note. Repealing and reshaping the identity of the Dutch Martin Taxi Association.
It's been, for me, it's been good. It's something that I'm actually passionate about, knowing the condition that it was in, and to basically pull it out of the dirt, and make it good again. So, like, I had a campaign before I was elected. I had specific points that I wanted to work on in the association, and I would say we have basically accomplished within this year about 80% of what we set out to do.
Okay.
Like paying outstanding bills, amending the constitution, trying to find different ways to generate more work for the drivers. So, building back up the reputation of the association as well. We ain't completely there, but we're getting there.
Yeah. But efforts have been made to get there.
Efforts have been made,
Okay, because you kind of touched on one of my last questions for you, which is, how has, as an association with even drivers, work, given all that you guys went through with the hurricanes and now the pandemic, in terms of revamping operations to ensure, continued business longevity. Because I know that the market is not that
tight.
big already. It's pretty tight. So, how you guys working to be different, to still stand out and give that service that would make people want to continue with you guys.
Okay, so of course we have to be innovative in the type of services that we provide. So instead of like doing the old traditional tour with the old traditional stops, we try to find other ways to maybe incorporate businesses, on in those tours, especially where we try to pitch to cruise ships and so forth. That's not something that I believe was ever done before with the association, so we want to try and have that new approach in doing that. And yeah, mostly like working with different businesses and finding different activities for people to do. Because another thing that's also unfortunate is a new business would open, they wouldn't let us know as taxi drivers that they're there. And like somebody would come to us, hey, I want to go to XYZ place. And we're like, okay, XYZ place, tell me what area it's in. We get the contact information, call them, find out where it is, and drop the person's there, you know. So what we, as a matter of fact, tomorrow specifically, what we as board are going to do is we drive around the island to look for different things for people to do.
Smart.
Yeah. To introduce them to those things. And then again, social media wasn't something that the previous administrations did. They're a bit older, so you know they're not really adapt with what's going on with social media. Mm-hmm. So like pushing and making the association known on those social platforms is another way of trying to keep the association going.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And do you guys by any chance have a partnership or agreement with the tourist office as well?
No.
Okay, maybe that may be an avenue for
a conversation with them would be good. Yeah.
Okay. So is there any final words you'd like to share?
Thanks again for inviting me here on the show today. I'd like to give a shout out to the rest of the board members who will definitely be listening, also the members of the association. I'd like to say hi to my mother, my son, you know, my motivation for doing what it is I do. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Miss Friday, thank you so much, and I wish you guys much success. And you know, as a reporter as well, I'll do my part on my end, you know, to continue to bring across some of these serious issues, because you know, like I said, you guys are the backbone of our economy, and you know, it's important that we as St. Martin truly support our locals. It goes beyond just posting on Facebook, but that there's real advocacy, real lobbying, and real results.
Yes.
So on that note, folks, thank you so much for listening to us on the program, and be sure to take care and have a good day.